Welcome back to the RAD podcast. Hope you had a great Monday. Glad to have you here. Excited about this awesome conversation that we're about to have. And I know one thing that is already missing from this is the baby boomers. But I feel like we have some in the audience, so we're definitely going to pull on you for today's conversation big time. But nevertheless, I'm one half of the co-host of this awesome podcast. My name is Larry Jefferson. I'm glad you're here today and looking forward to the conversation.
All right, Dantrayl Smith representing Memphis. Glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation that we're about to have in regards to intergenerational workforce. And if you all know, every episode's built on each other. And so the previous episode, we talked about kind of creating that longevity and establishing a good, solid foundation, particularly with minority-owned businesses. But now you're at the place where you got to hire the right people, right? And so we're going to talk about what is it, what kind of questions and what type of individuals do you need to bring into your workspace in order to make your company run as good as it should. So I'm excited about the conversation, man, and go Celtics.
I'm logging off. Nevertheless, we're gonna allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Samir, you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Samir Tobin, formerly of the nationally owned, locally grown Southeast Cultural Network. I'm currently doing some awesome work with TCU's Comparative Race and Ethnic Studies and African American and Africana Studies programs.
All right, I'm not as educated as all these other brothers on the line, but but I did all right for myself. I'm Daryl Frierson, graduate of Iowa State University, then Hunter College. Now I'm a marketing director for ACH processing company called Dwala, and also on my own podcast network, the SOOC Network.
I like your mic too, bro.
Oh yeah, thanks, man. Got a couple of them. I brought the nice one out for y'all.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. Hey, we're gonna go ahead and dive in. So the first question we got for you, man, is particularly from your experience, and what are really some barriers or some challenges of employing kind of multi-generational individuals in an organization, right? So you're working in an organization where you got individuals from different generations. Talk a little bit about what are some of those barriers and challenges in bringing those people in.
Yeah, I'll go first. One of my biggest things I've seen is, I think it's something that's going to be happening more in the future, but there is a more similarity between people, the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, and like the Xennials. You know, it's like the Xennial and then a little bit of the millennial as well, because a lot of the technology was not there in its highest level now. So a lot of those people are kind of all together, even though they're different. They all kind of bonded together in their way of the way the employment went. So like everybody that's probably 35 on up have all the same thought process, or were taught the same way of how the employment structure is supposed to go. It's everyone under 35, and I think that's going to be a challenge more towards the future, is those people that's 35, 34 and under, of how you intertwine them, because you're having to talk to them differently. Like they're not going to pick up the phone as much. They're going to talk through email a lot more text messages. You may pick up the phone and be like, well, man, let me just get on this call. Or if we on Zoom or something, let me just jump on a Zoom call, which real quick and just hash this out. They might be like, no, just hit me on the Slack. That might be, more of and you got to kind of get used to that and also communicating with them better and fully fleshing out the way you actually type and I type out messaging, because we're used to secondhand of like, no, you good? You got to be like, no, you are all right. You can send it on the 5th because you have to explicitly, state more of what you're saying. And it's particularly with remote and dealing with multi-generational. But most of the old heads, they all kind of bond together and get mad at the younger people. So it's been a little bit easier for me in managing, because I just kind of just let them kind of like do their thing. And then, I just like, no, it's all good, man. You got to know what ET is, man. You be good. And then you can understand a reference. But other than that, I try to just make sure everyone gets and it's more of a challenge, I guess, more culturally than it is work-wise, because everybody's kind of getting the same education to a certain extent, or the older people are trying to keep up with the younger education, so they'll act like they did, or either way. So that's the way I look at it, kind of.
Yeah, from my experience, I've actually have a few varied ones. I've worked in multi-generational spaces in retail, higher ed, and food service. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, there's always, always, always an adjustment process. One of the places I worked, we had literally Gen Xers, late millennials, and like Gen Z was everybody else within the work staff. And there's some moments of like understanding what rapport is with elders that you work with, as well as also looking at them as a coworker. Like literally, it's still weird to this day for me to call Larry not Mr. Jefferson. That's just, it's hard to not do. And as one of his like former students in the program, that's hard for me to have made that switch and things like that. But again, I like what you said, Daryl, about it being more a cultural thing than anything inherently about when the person grew up or like educational access, because that's really what it boils down to 9 times out of 10.
So I got a piggyback question and talk a little bit about the cultural piece, because I want to make sure our audience understands what is the dynamics or challenge when it comes to the culture. Break that down.
Oh, there you
Yeah, no, go ahead, go smart. I went first last time.
Yeah, so I mean, me personally, I'm from New Orleans. It's yes, ma'am, no, sir, all those good things, and like traditionally raised Southern. But I'm learning from a lot of my peers that that was not the upbringing that they got wherever they grew up, and that's always weird. Again, rapport and respect is something that is absolutely major in any workplace, and sometimes those gaps don't get bridged. I know a lot of my people, like similar to me age-wise, were raised by parents who were teenagers when they were first born. My mom was like 30 something when she had me. So even with that stuff right there, again, like our cultural backgrounds and things of that sort highly inform that. My dad's an immigrant. The way he navigates and things like that is heavily imprinted on the way that I operate. And, there's all kinds of stuff that feeds into that.
Oh, for me, I don't know. It's interesting. The more of it is referencing certain things for within projects. Like you'd be like I was talking about ET, I'll put up something and be like, hey, we're gonna do this project like ET. We need to go back home to doing the way marketing was in a basic premise. And two of the people on my team were like, yo, don't even get like I had to figure this out what you meant with the whole project being named ET. Like I just kept going. I didn't even know that. I was like, man, everybody know what ET means. We going back to the basics. Like that was the whole point of the project. And they were like, yo, I ain't even gonna lie. I didn't even know until like an hour in that you was talking about we going back to basics, because I had to Google what ET was. Like, but other than that, it's just trying to understand and trying to like, hey, asking like, hey, I'm calling it ET. Goes home. Do you understand what I mean about this? Like, even for some of our older people, when we're referencing more hip hop or more cultural things on that basis, like, hey, do you understand? You understand what I mean? Or as at least in management, trying to find a middle ground or something where, man, everybody know who NSYNC is or know what this is or whatever reference I'm using for whatever it may be for a project. It's trying to get a basics for everybody, so it's not like a too homogenous, making more homogenized instead of more specific is the main thing I feel.
Yeah.
You kind of got to make it basic bread for everybody. You know what I'm saying?
It's all about reference point.
It's funny that you say that, because currently most of my team is like 22 and below. Yeah. And then I got one guy that's like 70. And when I say, oh man, is
at a 7-year-old, I was like, look here, man, you know what it is. Like that's what you just know what it is. Just talk to me if you need anything. Just holler at me. Like I don't even deal with nobody. Just holler at me.
I made a reference to a Coming to America, something they said in Coming to America, and they looked at me like I was like, what is he talking about? Like nobody seen Coming to, and the older guy was like, was that showing at the church? And I was like, no, it wasn't showing at no church, my brother. And then the younger was like, I ain't seen no Coming to America. Where did that come out? And so now I'm the old dude in the office. Like, oh man, it's insane.
Yeah.
So with that being said, how can you showcase your craft or gift when working or reporting to someone from a different generation?
That's a good question.
I honestly think at that point, especially if you're in management, you need to figure that out off the top. Like you need like, okay, I'm in management now, I'm in this. That's the first thing you need to figure out is how am I managing my people below me or understand for they can understand, and how am I reporting up. So if you don't want to be in management, then you don't have to worry about that because you're just gonna just kind of stay in that pocket. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking to develop that, you have to find something that you have that you can understand with every person on every level. Like, all right, me and you have this in common, me and you have this in common, and I can reference that and make you feel comfortable off of that one thing that we may have in common or that I know about. Like if you went to TCU, like, oh snap, me and my boy Trail went to TCU game, blah blah blah. Man, y'all stadium rigs, oh word. So the person feels more comfortable even with that small detail and remembering details about people and being very, very intentional about really knowing people and people you're working with as well. You'll go a long way.
Yeah. I'm gonna give Larry full credit on this because during the pandemic he gave me a book about workplace appreciation languages, and that was incredibly helpful for me navigating the different like relationships I had with different folks. Pretty much everywhere I've worked since I've read this. So like I know in certain places they want lace to the top button. This is a very professional rapport, and with other people, it's you have to approach them differently because they're not as used to working in corporate or educational spaces. So meeting folks where they're at is always going to be the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. And I can't take credit for the book. Gail gave it to me. So
Hey, no, I definitely agree with you. But my follow-up question to that then is if I'm, let's say, reporting to a person that's a baby boomer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I get them to really notice my work? You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like if I'm reporting to somebody that's in a different generation, like they respect a certain style of work ethic, right? And so like how do I display my gift or my craft to them in a way that they understand? Because I feel like I'm doing terrific, right? But in their eyes, they're like, man, this man is lazy.
That's a good one. You got to come with the hardcore facts and numbers at that point. Then, like you can't if the analytics are showing that this and this is happening by your own watch. I don't care if you're working 2 hours a week. If the numbers are showing this, then they can't dispute that. Then, and at the end of the day, then you're talking about a person not just because they're a baby boomer. You're talking about an unreasonable person if they're looking at hard numbers and like, oh well, no, you're not doing that. But like, hold on, chief. Like this is the numbers right here. This is how things are progressing or going. I'm hitting my goals. I'm hitting, or exceeding my goals or right above, right next to my goals. So this hardcore numbers would be anybody's kind of thing of feeling towards you.
Mm-hmm. That was one of my number one. I'm gonna start calling them lessons with Jefferson. You got to be able to back whatever your idea is, whatever your results are, and like even now at this new job, like things I learned towards the end of my tenure at the Intercultural Network, I took that with me happily. So we're working on an initiative right now to set up like a speaker series, and I'm already charting my stuff out to explain the turnout numbers versus how past events and things like that have gone. And again, if they don't see the cold hard facts and see that that's what's working, you're dealing with an unreasonable person.
yeah. Which can be very challenging, especially if you're not taking the time to understand who your staff is and what they see as hard work versus what you see as hard work.
Right.
And honestly, and I don't mean to be this plain with it, but if you're in an organization that's on that, you don't want to be there in general. Period. If they're not appreciating and understanding what this is, or especially new process, especially they're on some old stuff. Like, it's particularly with this pandemic, taught us it was that old style. Like, I gotta see you every day to believe you're doing something.
Nah.
Right.
That don't mean nothing because you see me every day. If I'm working, just because you see me every day don't mean I'm doing nothing. I've done it before where I've been there every day and I was doing half the work, but you thought I was there every day doing it. But I was there, but you saw me, right? So you think I was doing something. It's the numbers. If the person doesn't appreciate and look at the numbers and what you provide, you don't even want to be a part of that organization long term.
Facts.
So as a backup question to that, if someone is struggling with how to approach someone that's, I'm gonna say, Samir, what is your group called now?
Gen Z or Zoomers?
So say someone is a baby boomer and they do not know how to approach Samiri's work group.
Hold on, they call Zoomers? Is that the generation name? It's called Zoomers?
Yeah, it's a play off Boomers.
Wow.
Hold on, this is okay. Y'all, you got to explain that later on. But go real quick. I want to take the profession. I've never heard this Zoomers thing. And how young are you that Zoomers? That I missed the whole generation being named Zoomers. I'm trying to figure. I know I must be real old then if I missed the generation being named.
Hey. So how do you approach it if a baby boomer doesn't know how? They have their way of doing stuff. They're in typewriter mode, and this person's like, "Hey, let me send you this Canva graphic, and you let me know what you want." You know, how do you blend that, or how do you have that conversation when there's so much tension based off of work styles? Should I say?
I mean, I know at least for me, the Zoomers and the Boomers should never be in the same place at the same time. They just don't even. They don't even.
It's just confusing,
like,
right?
I hope that they ain't interacted as much because the Boomers are retiring soon. What are you dealing with these Zoomers for? Like it's a lot of intermediate steps between the Zoomers and the Boomers. So we'll talk about me being a Gen Xer. We'll go. I'll go with that towards the Boomers because the Zoomers and the Boomers they never should be together.
Shoot, I got something together right now.
Yeah, but you got a special situation. That's a special situation. that brother that's trying to get a second check. The 7-year-old trying to get a second check because he already got Social Security. He just don't want to be at home with nobody. He got a second check. So I ain't mad at him. You can fire him tomorrow. He'd be like, cool, I got my Social Security going on already. This is extra money. Martha ain't gonna get that new Cadillac she wanted. That's all he was trying to do is get his wife a new Cadillac. But what I figure at this point with technology, a boomer, if you're reporting up to them, has not gotten this far unless they've been able to adapt to technology. Right. So that's already been weeded out, I feel, to a certain extent. Now I think the work ethic idea and like this whole seeing you thing has been a new thing for them. But the game is making them change. It's almost like the game, I think this conversation is awesome to have, but I'm interested how it would be in 5 years in general, because the game is going to make whoever you like. If you ain't adapting to this game is adapting every year. 100%. It ain't like back in the day when we was. I mean, I'm assuming we all Gen X's and Gen, in this piece. Besides you, Zoomer, but we remember. You remember having to register for classes in person for part of it.
Right. Yep.
Like that is, and so think about everything else exponentially going up technology wise. So if you're not with that, you're gonna get rolled over. Like Benny Siegel said, get down and lay down. So really, if when it comes to technology or like relating on that level, I think it's more cultural than because the technology and the processes. If you ain't down with that, we're not gonna have you in this organization already. It's more about I think relating and the interpersonal is where the real thing is going to be, not actual the work, which is crazy, I know, but I think that's more of it because the game is going to roll over you if you don't get down.
Yeah. I don't know. It's mad different. The person who I'm reporting to at the highest is very old school in that way. He is a baby boomer now, and that's
how y'all see that was the first part problem. Zoomers and boomers. I need to have that in the what is it in the employee guide. The Zoomers and boomers can't be in the same room at the same time unless it's a class.
Right.
Yeah, no. I'm so thankful for the experiences that I had at TCC because I did not know or understand the poignance of being able to thoroughly explain everything that you have. They have a saying where it's like, tell it to me like I'm 5. And that's where I try to go with these things unless the scenario goes differently. It's definitely interesting from that aspect because even pre-pandemic, or not post-pandemic, we in the middle had to call an audible and move from what we're doing, which is a very in-person, student-driven thing, to like online spaces. And I'll admit myself, when we first started that, it was a little bit rough. We had turnout, but it wasn't like it was. But then I noticed someone who could do the thing that I wanted to do better. And I was like, Larry, you got to hire her. And then once that person got on team, it was able to make that transition. So maybe the lesson there is if you don't know how to do it yourself, find somebody who can. That's always, always, always a valuable one.
Hey, let me ask you all this before we go to the audience for questions. Do you think the perception of the Zoomers or younger generation has changed, like the work ethic? Do you think the perception of their work ethic has changed post COVID? And if so, why?
Um, from experience, no, we got our butts kicked the last few years, but I think the reality of it is the only change I've seen is there's definitely a discourse of is the amount I'm working worth what I'm getting paid? Because this generation is quick to quit a job and find something that pays better. There is no such thing at this point of working somewhere 25 years, you get your thank you watch and get bounced out the door when you're too old to work. A lot of us see the writing on the walls and it's like, all right, it's been fun. Let me find my next step.
You know,
Is that
to
why you
me,
left?
Oh,
oh, you ain't getting no
Oh,
check. You ain't had no check.
right.
man, my internet connection's breaking up.
Like,
I mean, if anything, at least for me, my whole job is remote. I only go there 4 times a year. So I only see my team 4 times a year. And I realized that, I knew it already. I'm like, yo, why am I going into a job every day? And because they would let us work from home sometimes. And I'm like, I'm just gonna start saying I want to work from home. This before the pandemic, I'm like, yo, I ain't coming in. Nobody would be tripping unless it was an actual physical meeting I needed to be at. And I think it showed them how much it really didn't mean nothing. And amount of time you spend on work, it really don't mean nothing as long as you're getting it done. But I don't get caught up in they finna use some new terminology on y'all out here. I already see it with these companies and these meetings. They want you to be nurturing each other and be around each other for the team building to try to bring you back in that office. Because and this is my personal opinion. I have data, but it's not antiquated with it. These commercial real estate people there's a communalistic relationship between these businesses, commercial real estate, and also like restaurants. So if I'm at the crib and I'm not going to the big offices everywhere, I'm not going to the cafeteria, I ain't swinging by the McDonald's that's around the way, the Starbucks, all that. I'm at the crib. So, and bringing them back in the office brings the economy back up on that side of the game. Yeah. So what they're doing, they're going to start saying, oh, well, you know what? Can you come in at least twice a week, Dantrayl? It's like, we just love to see you. We love to see you, Larry. We love to see you, Samar. But if you don't want to go, don't do that unless you want to go. Unless your job is intensive for it. But also, I want to go back to another point. The baby boomers also give a lot of good game up too. I don't want to dismiss what they give us because a lot of those old school ways or older ways, you still need those as well going into the future as well. So I think maybe something in general that I'm thinking about doing is mentoring, putting a not boomer, because we don't have any boomers on my team, but it's an older person, newer person together is like a team, and like letting them build off each other within projects. And we will see if I'll be fired or something in 6 months. Then y'all be like, I guess that didn't work.
right.
Don't hit his numbers for 2022.
Man, you ready to open the floor up to questions, man?
Go ahead.
All right. Anybody from the audience got a question?
I don't have a question, but I do have some statements to make. I am a baby boomer. And can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes, I am a baby boomer. My name is Twana Jefferson. I am retired now since last year, but I was employed with the Unrest for 37 years. 34 of it, I was in management. And so I had a range of employees. I probably had over 300 to 400 employees throughout my career. So I've had age range from 19 to 70. And so, of course, I'm dealt with the late millennials and the Gen Xers, but I also had baby boomers. Now, let me just say this. because I've heard, each of your opinions, and they're good, but if I happen to be a manager, even though I was a baby boomer, that accepted uh, the Gen Xers or the late millennials, whatever they could bring to the table. I was all about improving the process. Now, I know a lot of the baby boomers, including myself, we had our old ways, but when we had our team meetings, so to speak, the team building, the millennials and the Gen Xers brought things to us. And, the light bulbs went off. Okay, yeah, that's what smarter, not harder. But what my only challenge has been with having Gen Xers or the late millennials, and I guess you call the Zoomers. I don't know, maybe the Zoomers were gone by the time I retired in 2020. But my thing is, as a baby boomer, and I think it should be the same thing the Gen Xers should have, late millennials, is respect. That was my challenge with the youngsters. Respect, attitude, and that means, respecting rules and guidelines, dedicating themselves to work because they felt like, I don't have to go to work today. And the reason being is a lot of them were living with their parents and grandparents. So we're like, okay, I don't have to go to work. Then we had, I had to have issues of, leave issues, and I didn't want to get them out of the door or whatever. So I would try to encourage them, whatever. But with just baby boomers, when I started, you didn't miss work because you had your own bills to pay and you didn't have mom and dad to take care of you. But it was just the respect, attitude, dedication to working, setting priorities.
Right.
Education was okay, but not all had the education. That doesn't mean just because you didn't have all this education doesn't mean that you didn't come up with good processes and good ideas. Just reporting to work and overall respect. And when we would get in the meetings, team meetings, the baby boomers, Gen X, like we couldn't get along because what I did as a manager is you will respect the next person in the room. The argument, all that, no, you can learn to agree to disagree. And so it worked out for me. I just got tired after 37 years. I was just tired of working, but I just want to just, put that out there for you.
Appreciate it.
So that's it.
Anybody else have a question?
One of the things I want to add to Mama Jefferson's comment, as she talked about the baby boomers, one of the things that I respect about the baby boomer generation, the skill set, I guess, as if you want to call it, is their ability to be able to pinpoint, and maybe it's just good mentoring, right? But they're able to pinpoint the quality of the individual, right? And they're able to see the potential in the individual. And that's something that I think has been key for me in just my growth and development, by key individuals seeing certain things in me and pulling it out, right? And so that's a skill set that I got from, my parents' generation that I've used to mentor so many others. And so that's one skill set that I definitely appreciate from their generation. Any other questions we got? Okay.
If they don't have one, I definitely do.
So you have a question? Yeah.
I do, 100%. So I have never been at the top or ascended to a management position yet. I've been put over small teams and things like that, but we still learning and growing in this process. Or have any of y'all had a moment where y'all had to remind yourselves, like, they're currently at where I was in the past, or like, had to try to remember, I too relate to being new to this, like a team member.
I mean, I know I have. I did that with you. I did it with God Favor as well, knowing that maybe the polishing wasn't there. However, you saw the potential and knew what it could grow into being. And you took that potential and just added little nuggets to it every time. And like, hey, clean it up here, clean it up there. And then you'll see a drastic growth in that person. And I'm thankful that I've had that opportunity to see what my leadership can actually excel someone too. But I've also had the opportunity where I was like, damn, I shouldn't have hired this person.
I know, right? I was thinking the same thing.
I mean,
Go ahead, switch with me, Daryl. What you got?
No. I was laughing because I thought the same thing. I was like, man, I feel that, but I felt the other way as well.
right.
Especially when you start doing their work. That's when you really be like,
Oh man,
word? Like,
yeah.
you're supposed to be helping out. I'm doing your stuff plus the stuff I thought I was gonna be able to go do.
You know, and that's when it becomes real tough. Knowing that, hey, I hired you to do this. I'm thinking it's gonna make, take something off my plate, but I'm doing more explaining and more coaching. And then next thing you know, I'm basically taking it over.
I might as well just do it then. That's when I just get frustrated. Just send me the link. Let me do it. Just send it to me. It's faster for me doing it than sitting there trying to explain it to you.
Right. And I think another aspect of it is like really trying to let them mess up. And I think sometimes we as supervisors struggle with that, right? Because our jobs are on the line, our product, I guess if you would say, is on the line. And so there's a lot of times where I want you to fail, because I know failing builds character, right? But then there's other times where you're like, man, this product has got to be done this way or right way. And so I think sometimes supervisors can struggle with that because then it may come off as, oh, you are always on my
List.
my wife told me, my wife told me not to cuss on here when we record.
List. I called you before you said list. It's on your list.
I need the beat button again.
We got 2 questions too, Dantrayl.
Oh, okay.
Gaya.
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to kind of add to Samiri's question that he did have. Samiri, when you are in a situation like that, one option might be to model for them. Whenever you're sending responses to maybe a supervisor or someone, send that copied response to them and say, keeping you in the loop, because you are modeling how you want them to respond in your absence. And that's how you start to build capacity. Otherwise, they are always going to depend on you to do that work. And that's not your goal. Your goal is to build their capacity so that they can fly without you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Taisha.
Hi, I just had a question for Samiri because he's the youngest. And so my question is, I'm not sure if you're like the youngest with your company or not, but being one of the younger individuals, like the fresh-faced individual, do you, in your opinion, do you think that because you are younger, that there's more expectation set on you in regards to like computer literacy and being able to like maneuver through databases and things of that nature with inadequate training? Like they expect for you to just kind of pick it up relatively quickly and not provide you like the support that you need in regards to training material or like hands-on, like one-on-one conversations with team leads or upper management. Do you think that more expectation is set on you because you are younger and they just think that you should already know?
Yes, and the funny thing about this is when I interviewed, I told them what I was good at. I'm like event coordinating and execution. I can do a few videos here and there. I'm great at publishing a newsletter. I'm great with developing rapport with students and tabling and all of that. And I named off stuff like bam, 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 bam. And when I got there, the first thing they wanted me to do was set up a homepage on a platform I had never used before.
What platform was it?
It's this D2L thing. I call it B2K to make fun of it because I literally don't understand this thing.
Oh, so it's not WordPress or nothing. Wow.
No, it's not. And like y'all think y'all had issues with Blackboard and Canvas. I be wanting to jump off something working with D2L sometimes. That's just not the platform that I learned. I hate it as a student. I hate it even more as somebody who has to post on it. But those are the expectations they're getting put in front of you. And the funny thing is, yeah, I agree. The funny thing about it is there's times when you go and ask them, well, what do we do about this? And they're like, we passed it off to you because we didn't know. And that was something wild for me to hear boldface. I'd never expected in all my years to hear that kind of stuff. But, if you aren't able to adapt, you ain't sticking around long. It's as simple as that. And it is kind of wild for me being almost a middleman. I'm not the youngest. We had somebody that said they was born in 2003 the other day. And I was like, you're in college now? They do that? And so it's very different. And the thing that I'm trying to work on is being a better bridge between the people above me in admin as well as in the department and the work studies that are working where I am now. Because, there's a lot of youth and zeal over here and there's a lot of jadedness over on the other side. And I need to communicate what they expect of us without passing some of the, conjecture on to the young folks. And that's really what I'm working on right now.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. Well, the last question we have for you all is kind of really how to moving the needle forward, right? So how can leaders benefit from creating this multi-generational work team? And then talk a little bit about what are some steps of things that we can do, right, as individuals to kind of create this conglomerate positive work environment for all generations?
I think the first thing is, regardless of generations, figuring out everyone's strengths and weaknesses on your team and putting them in position to actually succeed. So like he was just talking about building a website. If he don't know how to build that website, not saying but I'm saying if I got someone else that's around the way that's good with that, with design or something like that, that needs a position I need to put them in. I can't put them in operations if they're good at the artistic side. And I think that's beyond generational. I think that's the first step. And then other things will break up from there. Because if I'm comfortable and I'm in the pocket of what I'm doing, those other things will start to kind of build their fruition because I'm doing what I'm engaged in or something that's challenging enough, but is attainable too. So you don't want to, like I said, if somebody don't know how to design, you can't put them in design like, yo, I'm going to give you a challenge. I'm gonna put you in design. And you be like, dude, I went to school for marketing. Like, what do you mean putting me in design? Well, you need a challenge, right? No, you need to put people in a position that they can be challenged and succeed. And then making it open, at least making it open as much as possible for everyone to give suggestions, regardless of what it is. Like, don't making you as the manager making it open and there's no dumb ideas, regardless of are they old school, young, whatever. You may be having a nugget here. I mean, we may get a nugget from this, maybe get enough from this and put it together. So having that open line of communication as well and putting people into positions as well to make them successful and give them a challenge at the same time.
I like it. I like it.
I'm going back to the well again. Another lesson with Jefferson: make everybody's voices feel equitable in meeting spaces, as well as just bouncing ideas off in general. I think making sure that people feel heard and they feel positively challenged like that are absolutely major for making these workspaces work. And I also think, as you pointed to earlier, Mr. Darrell, the people who are
don't
older,
do that to me, man. Don't do that to me.
My apologies.
It's all good, man. It's all good. I mean,
but yeah,
hey, Trill, come on, man. You got Mr. Darrell. That sound like I'm. I ain't gonna need to go ahead. It sound like I'm the dude back in the '70s that show up in the Cadillac, coming over. Yeah, Mr. Darrell came over to see Mama.
hey, when he said Mr. Darrell, I'm like, man, who is that? I don't know this dude.
Good Lord.
That's when your grandma had her little boyfriend. Hey, Grandma, Mr. Darrell came by.
I cannot at all. But
go ahead.
Making sure that people from within the office who are in an older position, setting them up to mentor the younger folks if they so desire. Because there are some folks who be like, I have no interest in doing that. And you take that as a no, okay, you're better used elsewhere. But if they have something to pass on, allow them to pass it on. in constructive ways. I should say that.
Thanks. Good.
All right. Dantrayl, what you got for us, man?
All right, man. So this quote comes from a Monique Valcour. And so she states that there is an intergenerational sweet spot we should aim for, a point of maximum engagement for all employees. But we miss it by fixating on minor differences and taking them out of context, and by failing to appreciate the similarities among employees of different ages. If you find it challenging to relate to and motivate your employees, it's likely that you attribute this, at least in part, to differences between your generations and theirs. After all, what generation hasn't been baffled by the behaviors of the succeeding ones or questioned its values?
Mm.
Man. Hey, I like that quote.
Yeah, man.
What's that sister's name again?
Monique Valcour, Valcour.
Okay.
And you know what? It makes me think about, I said the other day that I was going to stop calling these new age rappers trash. And I'll tell you why I said it, though. I'll tell you why I said
I
it.
got to hear this one.
Because I thought about the music I listened to. And at the time, you know, I grew up an 8-Ball, MJG, UGK fan. And I can only imagine what my parents thought about the music that I was listening to. I'm sure they was like, this here is just trash. I can't believe you listen to all this garbage. Right. And I say the same thing when I hear some of these little yacht, little boat, little everybody.
You leave Lil Yachty out of this layer.
Little baby, the big babies, all the other babies. And I said, I'm gonna stop calling their music trash, because I'm sure at some point my parents thought our music was trash. And it's all about evolution and how it relates to them. You know, that's what related to me, because I was from the South, and whatever that being on Instagram, splurging and all that, it doesn't make sense to me because I don't have Instagram. And doing some of the stuff that they talk about doing, I can't relate to it because that's not something I do. I can relate to the stuff that some of they was doing. So with some of the stuff, make sure I say some of the stuff that they was doing. But it made me change my whole perspective on it, though.
You know,
and
one of the things
quote talks right to that.
You know, go ahead.
Oh, you got it, Dr. Smith.
Well, I was going to just say, man.
Don't be calling him Dr. Smith.
Question out there, man.
I'm messing with you. Let me call him Trail.
Hey, you know, one of the questions I had though was like, I always wonder, you know how like when we look back at our mom and dad's generation, right? So we always talk about those.
You got the camera, bro.
Oh,
yeah.
You know, we always talk about those albums or those songs that we still kind of connect with, you know, like the Spinners, stuff like that. Like, I wonder what songs the younger generation connects to that's from our personal generation. You know what I'm saying? That they be like, oh yeah, that's my jam, you know, like what? You know what I'm saying? Like, I always wonder what those songs are for us.
Well, Samiri comes in, well, when he was working here, he comes in and turns the music on. He got whole Ozzy Brothers playing. I said, man, we can't play Ozzy Brothers in the office.
Say.
I ain't mad at him, though. I ain't mad at him.
My VP come in here in between the sheets. I'm like, I gotta explain this.
But they have some good artists. It's some good young rappers too. So I always try to find the good ones within their ranks and let the Yahtzees and the Kojaks and the Kodiak Blacks and all them kind of stay in their place, and just because it's just ignorant. It's just, we had ignorant music too. Like
we did a lot of it.
So they're not good anymore. Like I mean, you know, I know that we love No Limit, but that music wasn't good. B. Let's just go and keep it for real.
Good.
Huh?
I'm gonna have to disagree with you.
See, you ain't.
No. I'm sorry. Two people on No Limit were good. Mystical and Fiend. Everybody else, I agree with y'all.
Okay, but Mystical, I don't really look at him No Limit. He was at a time. There's like Snoop isn't really No Limit. He just had to stop there. So that's why I'm thinking like the No Limit sound is not applicable anymore. When the last time you be like, yo, put on that soldier rags?
Right.
Like, you be like,
wait, whoa. I'm from New Orleans. Let me not even try to defend that one.
But
No,
no, I totally get what you're saying.
yeah. Because there's some good artists in their age range too. So, I just attach to them and I don't worry about the other ones. Like, ABMG had classics. UJK had classics. You name 2 classic people of our generations, But I'm trying to think, what happened to Skee-Lo? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Right. So we can't act like all our music was dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, what happened to him? It's a couple of people, man. I won't diss, but that was a Skee-Lo came to mind. But
yeah, but that's why, going back to what Dantrayl was saying, and the quote was saying, it's important that we recognize the importance of what each generation brings as far as value to everything. We have a lady here on our campus, and I call her my grandmother. Her name is Dr. Thompson, and this lady is like an OG church dress wearing, like, grandma of this campus, and I just appreciate her leadership. And she just spitting game at me, and you wouldn't think she would have this much knowledge, but she's been around so long, she knows about all of this. And to have that guidance at where I'm at in my stage of my career, it's like, okay, I need this, but I also want to learn from our younger generation because they have stuff that we don't even know about, and so I'm getting educated on that aspect too. So I think both groups are just as important as the other.
Strongly agree.
Yeah. But no, I definitely agree with you, brother. And man, I want to say I appreciate both of you all coming on the podcast, man, and showing some love and sharing the wealth of knowledge.
So I just want listeners to know I know Trill, or I guess y'all call him Dr. Dantrayl Smith. I know him 20-some plus years. So that's why I'm like, Dr. Smith, what do you call him? Dr. Smith? Yeah, you got your PhD, but I ain't calling you no doctor.
Man, you crazy. As soon as I finish with this, I'm not even answering to Larry no more. I'm like, you ain't calling me doctor. Like, I don't want the DR. You got to spell the whole word out for me.
You say, you got to spell doctor out D-O-C-T-O-R.
Yeah, you got to spell the whole word. All this I got to go through to get this. Yeah.
And put your PhD at the end, huh? You got to do both the prefix and the suffix.
Oh, hey. Better know it.
It's not even going to be doctor. It's going to be Sir Larry Jefferson.
Oh,
Sir Larry.
He going to add something new.
But I echo what Dantrayl said. We appreciate y'all. I guess we greatly appreciate y'all. Great questions from the audience today. And as panelists, man, y'all have been funny. Yeah, like this has been truly gem. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. And make sure y'all tune in next week, man, because now we talked about, building that foundation, right? Building a legacy, creating a solid foundation in terms of work. Then we talked about hiring the right employees, but then the next phase, we're going to talk about the impact of unconscious bias in the workplace. And man, the 2 fellas we got coming on, you just do not want to miss. It's going to be powerful. So make sure y'all tune in.
Man, and I'm glad we're going to talk about that. I just did a paper yesterday on structural racism, and it made me talk about organizations that I've worked for where I've seen it. And it was an easy paper to write, to say the least.
I mean, it happens, man, all the time, bro. I mean, we deal with it every day, particularly in our role, right? Working in intercultural, multicultural affairs. Like, we see it, breathe it, have conversations about it, man, to the point to where it's like, man, everybody needs to get on board and understand it. It's real, man.
Yeah. But again, thank you, guests. Thank you, panelists, for being here. Until then, we'll see you next Monday. Have a good one. Be safe.